Once, in a war-torn land where every day seemed to blur into the next, there lived a young girl named Ilara. She was the daughter of a poor farmer, living in a small village on the outskirts of a great empire that was engulfed in conflict. The war had taken everything from her, her father, her home, and most of her hope. Yet she carried on doing what she could to help the surviving villagers, even as their lives continued to be shattered by the battles around them. Ilara's days were spent collecting supplies, tending to the wounded, and offering a few moments of peace to those who had lost everything. She didn't dream of romance or wealth, only of survival, for herself and the few who remained close to her heart. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, there was a young man named Adrian. He was the son of a wealthy, noble family, born into privilege and wealth, far removed from the suffering of the common people. But despite his comforts, Adrian found himself in the midst of the chaos. He had been conscripted into the army, sent to fight a war he had never wanted but had no choice but to endure. His heart, though encased in luxury and status, began to grow weary of the bloodshed and destruction surrounding him. One fateful day, their paths crossed. Adrian's regiment had been dispatched to a village near the front lines where the fighting was most intense. It was here that Ilara was helping tend to the wounded in the makeshift field hospital she had set up, her hands stained with the blood of her fellow villagers. Adrian, who had always been protected by the walls of his noble family, was shocked by the devastation that lay before him. The village was in ruins, its people broken. As he walked through the dusty streets, searching for his comrades, he noticed a young woman working tirelessly, her eyes focused but weary. Something about her strength and resilience caught his attention.
Can I help?
You're a soldier. You've come to bring more death.
No, not at all. I'm just trying to find something. Anything to make sense of this.
For the first time in weeks, Ilara found herself speaking openly. She spoke of her family, of the land they once worked, of the people she had loved who had now perished. And Adrian, whose life had always been dictated by commands and expectations, found himself listening, not just hearing, but feeling. He saw in Ilara not just a victim of the war, but a woman with courage, heart, and grace beyond anything he had ever known. Days turned into weeks as Adrian's regiment stayed in the village to protect it, and he found himself returning to Ilara again and again, drawn not by pity, but by admiration. They shared stories, their hopes, and even their fears. The disparity in their worlds seemed to vanish in those quiet moments, as they both found solace in each other's company amidst the chaos. But their love, like their lives, was not without its struggles. Adrian's noble family had arranged a marriage for him to a woman of his own class, someone who would secure his future and solidify his position. His duties as a soldier were also clear: fight for his country, follow orders, and never question. And yet each time he thought of returning to his life of privilege, he felt torn. His heart now belonged to Ilara, the girl who had known only loss, but still found the strength to rise each day. Ilara too was bound by her own reality. She had seen the worst of the world, and while Adrian's love brought her a glimmer of hope, she knew that their worlds could never truly merge.
I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know that I want to be with you.
We are from different worlds, Adrian. The war will end, but our lives will never be the same. You'll go back to your family, and I'll remain here, picking up the pieces of what's left.
I don't care about my family. I care about you.
But despite their love, the war could not be avoided. A battle near the village left many injured, including Adrian, who was gravely wounded. Ilara stayed by his side, refusing to leave him, even though the soldiers around them urged her to flee. She whispered to him as he lay unconscious, her voice steady despite her fear. When Adrian finally awoke, the war was over. The empire had fallen, and so had the barriers between the classes. The noble families had lost much, and Ilara's village had been reduced to ruins. Adrian returned to the village with Ilara, not as a nobleman, but as someone who had seen the true cost of war. He worked beside her, rebuilding the lives they had once lost. Their story was one of courage and perseverance, a love that bloomed in the darkest of times. In the end, it wasn't the riches or titles that defined them, but the strength of their hearts, the shared promise of a life lived not in fear, but in the hope they found in each other.